never heard her accuse me directly, and that was what confused me the most. There was no argument, no raised voice, no clear moment I could point to and say, this is where it started. Things just slowly changed around me. Messages stopped coming. Conversations felt shorter. People who once smiled easily suddenly looked distracted. I replayed moments in my head again and again, searching for something I had missed. She spoke to me normally, kindly even, while something unseen was quietly unfolding behind me. I believed silence meant peace. I believed time would clear confusion. I didn't realize that while I was waiting for clarity, a version of me was already being created without my voice. Family gatherings used to feel safe, like places where nothing could truly go wrong. Then slowly, that feeling disappeared. Conversations became careful, laughter felt forced, eyes avoided mine. No one accused me of anything directly, yet everyone treated me differently. I wanted to ask what was wrong, but I didn't even know where to begin. It hurt more because they were family, the people I expected to stand by me without hesitation. I kept believing loyalty would speak louder than rumors, but silence answered instead. While I waited for honesty, distance quietly grew. They expected me to react immediately, to deny everything, to fight back loudly. Instead, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, but because I was lost. I didn't know what story I was supposed to fight. Every day felt like standing inside a storm without knowing how it began. People looked at me differently, as if I had changed overnight. I kept believing clarity would arrive on its own. I trusted the truth to fix itself. I didn't realize that my silence was allowing others to decide who I was. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from being misunderstood by everyone at once. Friends stopped inviting me out. Coworkers kept conversations short. Even casual interactions felt distant. I began questioning my own memories, wondering if I had missed something obvious. Self-doubt became routine. I searched old messages, old photos, old moments, trying to find the shift. Nothing explained it. That's when I learned something important. People don't always need proof. They need a story that feels comfortable, and once they have it, they rarely look back. People often say silence shows maturity, strength, control. I believed that completely. I chose silence to avoid making things worse. I didn't want drama. I didn't want attention. I convinced myself patience would protect me. What no one tells you is that silence has consequences. It gives others space to speak for you. It fills gaps with assumptions. By the time I considered speaking, opinions had already settled. I learned silence is never neutral. Sometimes it quietly chooses a side. When confusion spreads, people look for someone to blame. They want the simplest explanation, the one that brings relief. I was quiet, reserved, distant. That made me convenient. At first, it didn't feel personal. It felt practical. I watched others relax as responsibility shifted away from them and landed on me. I didn't notice when the story stopped being temporary. Repetition gave it strength. Each retelling made it feel more real. By the time I understood my role, the ending was already decided. Lies don't collapse immediately. They stretch. They adjust. I started noticing small inconsistencies. Details changed. Stories didn't align the same way twice. I stayed quiet, not because I was afraid, but because I was watching. I knew forcing truth too early often backfires. Each contradiction added weight. Each exaggeration made the story heavier. I didn't celebrate these moments. I simply observed them stacking up. I believed something would eventually break. I just didn't know how long I had already been waiting. When the truth finally surfaced, it wasn't dramatic. No apologies, no public explanations, just silence. People avoided eye contact, changed the subject, acted as if nothing had happened. I expected closure, but what I received was distance. That taught me something important. Closure doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it comes from understanding. Understanding who stayed quiet, who looked away, who returned only when it felt safe. I didn't come back stronger or louder. I came back quieter, more careful. I trusted less and observed more. What I lost changed how I listened and how I watched people react. I stopped explaining myself unnecessarily. I stopped chasing understanding. Growth didn't feel powerful. It felt isolating, but it felt honest. I didn't change overnight. I became aware, and awareness changed everything. With distance came clarity. I noticed patterns I had ignored before, how easily people accepted what suited them. I understood that truth alone doesn't move people. Comfort does. Convenience does. I stopped blaming myself for not being heard. Some people weren't listening to understand. They were listening to confirm. That realization didn't bring anger. It brought calm. I stopped explaining myself to rooms that had already decided who I was. Time passed, and the noise faded, but the lessons stayed. I learned to pay attention to silence, to hesitation, to distance. Betrayal doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like indifference. I didn't become bitter. I became selective. Trust stopped being automatic. It became intentional. I chose where my energy went and who deserved access to my life. That choice changed how I moved forward without needing to announce it. Betrayal rarely announces itself clearly. It blends into everyday moments, hides behind concern and half-truths. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't know how to read them yet. I believed loyalty was guaranteed. I believed truth was enough. I learned perception often matters more than reality. The hardest part wasn't losing people. It was realizing when I lost them. Not at the end, not during conflict, but quietly, long before I understood what was really happening.